What's up, everybody? It's Blair Johnson with the Badass Records podcast, coming at you with another episode in which we talk people, records, badass music. And this week's episode is Jeremy Clark. He is the bassist for Tracer Heights. You can keep your finger on their pulse at tracerheights.com. They're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Bandcamp. It was awesome hanging with Jeremy, learning a little bit about him and some of his favorite music and what Tracer Heights is all about. And I'd be remiss if I didn't add that it's always a pleasure to chew the fat with a fellow Phishhead. Podcast episodes drop Thursday mornings typically if I have my you-know-what together. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you stream, be it Apple, Spotify, Amazon, etc. For your social needs, Twitter and Instagram. And that's it. BadassRecordsPodcast.com, BadassRecordsPodcast@gmail.com if you want to be on the show or if you want to hit me up to collaborate on something or other. Appreciate you stopping by. Hope you enjoy the show. Nevertheless, Jeremy Clark.
Yes.
Tracer Heights.
That's right.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bassist for Tracer Heights, which is rock, blues, and bluegrass with the spirit of psychedelic improvisational music, right?
That's right.
TracerHeights.com. You guys are on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Bandcamp, the latter of which features a 12-track full-length LP, First Sight, from 2021.
That's right.
And a 5-track, 50-plus minute live recording that was mixed and mastered to give it something of a studio feel, right?
Yeah.
Self-titled.
And it was tracked at Davies Uptown.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
They just,
R.I.P. in peace.
Yeah,
Davies,
exactly.
Right?
So, just record it from the mixer, but then, it's
Sure.
just kind of sterile sounding. So we hired somebody to mix and master it for us.
Okay.
Just to have a release,
Yeah. Initially, Josh was going to be here.
That's right.
And then he swapped him. He subbed you for himself.
Yeah.
Because you and I, quote unquote, share a love of fish.
That's right.
However, ironically, his list had a fish record on it. Yours did not.
Right.
Which is okay, and we'll get to all that. But I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I didn't know his had one on.
He had riffed on there.
Okay,
yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Which just made me giggle. But
right.
So you're born and raised in the area.
Yep, that's right.
And sibling situation for you is?
I have one sister, 7 years younger than me.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Any idea how mom and dad met?
They both grew up in Independence as well, and just met in school.
School.
Yeah.
Right on.
They got married really young.
Okay.
My mom was 17 when they got married.
Yep. That's young.
Yeah. As people did back then.
Yeah. Now, were they folks that put on music to listen to in the home when you guys were little?
So yeah, a lot of the music I listened to growing up was we're in the 70s. Really, I was born barely in the 70s. So we're in the 80s when I'm growing up as a kid. They're really into like the 70s what we call classic rock now. And so I have many, many memories of being down in the basement, or what they called the rec room.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the pool table.
Okay.
And all their friends over.
Wood panel walls.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Which
Nice.
Eventually became my bedroom when I got older. But
sounds like a party.
Yeah. And it had like mirror, tiles, and they just would have their friends over and just be blasting vinyl.
Your
classic
folks?
rock. Yeah. When I was a kid, I'd be down there, and they had they were big into Pink Floyd, Steve Miller Band.
Cool.
And just any of what I would like to call maybe like the bong rock of the of the 70s.
Nice.
and and I just I used to sit there and just marvel at the album covers of some of these.
One of the legs of the stool of why this is what it, because that is not a thing.
I know.
I mean,
it really
it can be, right? But that's most people are. Anyway,
they've missed out. Like
Bong
people
rock.
miss out now. Yeah. And I just remember specifically one. I was fascinated by the cover of a Pink Floyd album that's called it's called A Nice Pair, and it's a compilation kind of their first two albums.
Yeah.
They re-released them in and you open it up.
Is there a big set of tits on the cover?
It's got pictures like that.
Okay.
So it's like several small photos.
It's like Loverboy's big ones, their greatest hits.
Yeah.
Like two big trucks, two big boobs, two big rockets.
Exactly. So it's all these references to Nice Pair. And of course, like you said.
Yeah.
So as a kid, you're drawn to that too. But I would just look into all of these things.
Sure.
I loved like the progressive rock, like the Yes album covers with the psychedelic dragon. It was just, I would just look at the covers, and they'd be playing the music. And so that's a early memory I have of listening to
very
albums,
cool. I was that the version of your parents that I was in my room with the door shut amidst my tapes.
Yeah.
And just devouring corner to corner, and I remember I don't even think I definitely hadn't even had a beer buzz at this point, but listening to the whole track of, I guess it's Fly Like an Eagle.
Yeah.
And it's just just being like, what is going on? Like, I don't know what this is, but it feels like a pair of shoes I have not walked in, and I'm like drawn to it. And then later I was like, oh, people are high. Like this, I got it now. Yeah. But yeah, like, bong rock for sure. Right. So what about, what numbers wise ish do you suspect your folks' collection got to? And is it still around?
I still have some of the records. Okay. It was never, from what I saw, it was never that huge.
Okay, but sounds like a good mix of stuff in there.
Yeah, and it was honestly, there weren't anything like deep tracks in there too much. It was what you would hear on
FM radio,
classic rock station of, I guess if you're in the 90s, I know they have this weird thing they do where they consider classic rock a rolling scale of things, which I don't like that approach at all. I think that's strange. I think classic rock is an era followed by another era followed by another era.
Yeah. I'll never forget hearing a track off of Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever on the Fox. Later, and I wasn't living here and came back, and I was like I want to smack my album, my stereo. What's wrong with this thing? Like,
right.
It's like, oh, I guess you can't just. There's only so many tracks. There's only so many Creedence tracks.
They just want to add more, which I get, but it just seems like it's still got an era. You can kind of define music into eras.
Yeah.
There's new wave era, there's grunge, whatever you want to call it, hair metal, heavy, and it's just strange that these songs are sliding into the classic rock category.
It is strange. It's real strange.
Like, really, Pearl Jam, I guess. I mean.
So
they had a pretty small collection, I would say, by some people's standards of, the popular music when they were in high school. Basically.
Okay, right on. Now, beyond stuff that they owned and that you heard in under their roof, was there an album, not necessarily from your list, that you first fell in love with? Or borrowed from a buddy, or maybe the first one you bought with your own money that sticks out?
Yeah, so the ones that stick out to me would be, there's a Neil Young compilation called Decade.
Okay.
That is basically his hand-picked favorite songs of the 70s, or like 69 to 79, or something along those lines. And it's a double, and a friend of mine introduced me to that in probably 6th grade.
Okay.
And that was something we just wore out listening to.
Nice.
And it just kind of covered his Buffalo Springfield days at the beginning.
Oh, wow.
Way,
okay.
Through all of the classic Neil Young stuff.
Yeah.
And I always kind of go back to that one. That album's another
Nice.
meaningful one in my life that just didn't make the cut.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Do you know who Stephen Hyden is?
I don't know. That name is
Music
ringing a bell.
journalist. He's
Okay.
if he's a I see him on Twitter, and he's got, you know he's sharp,
Mm-hmm.
and he's constantly cranking. I think he has a book coming out like right now, but he just puts, you know written material, and he just does. He's I think he's pretty respected
Mm-hmm.
in the field, and I think that you say music journalist, and where does that begin and end,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's who all counts, and I think under the strictest of lens, he would still make the cut. Say all that to say, he just a few weeks ago put out the top 100 Neil Young songs.
Yeah.
And even as somebody who admittedly, I'm not a scholar of every
Yeah.
solo or Crazy Horse or otherwise album that he's put out, but I'm a pretty darn big fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, there's no way. First of all, there's no way I'm going to know all the tracks that he's included.
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, I know there's going to be shit I disagree with.
Yeah.
But it was still fascinating
Yeah.
to peek at that. And man, Neil is one of a kind, right?
I know. Yeah. He's just one of those people. Like you've got Dylan and Neil Young and Tom Waits and these people like that just kind of did their own thing, and they just were so prolific.
Yeah.
He's still prolific.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
He's got so many albums. He was even, I think there's some story he was sued by the record label for sounding not like himself. When he was just like putting out those albums in the 80s.
Wow. Sure. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
What about shows? Any early concerts that stand out, or
well,
first?
It's funny, we were talking about Steve Miller Band. I did see I think that might have been my first concert, but it might have been Peter, Paul, and Mary. I don't remember the order.
Okay.
These were all
Sure.
like in their more nostalgia tours, of course, like coming through like Starlight and Sandstone, going with my friend's parents and him, from down the street. But I'm pretty sure it would, just thinking about the friends I had at the time, I think Steve Miller Band might have been the first one at what we are always going to call Sandstone.
Yeah. I willfully don't even know, how many different.
Right.
I know
it's got like a record, I think.
No way, really?
I think so.
Because anywhere you look these days, like Deer Creek hasn't been Deer Creek in forever. Like the Denver Nuggets just eliminated the Lakers last night, and it was Game 5, and Denver had the higher seed, so they were to Denver, to LA, and back to Denver. And when the series went out to LA, I don't pay a ton of attention to the NBA, but I have been a fan of these recent Nuggets squads, and so it goes out to LA, and I'm like, the Staples Center, which was a weird, I forget where the Kings, what it was called, like when Gretzky played with the Kings and Magic and Kareem were in those I forget what it was called, but it took a long while to get used to Staples Center, because it was like, that's a business.
Does it even? I guess that business still exists.
Maybe, but it's not that anymore. It's like called crypto. Bitcoin.net arena.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? That is,
it's getting surreal
at that point. Exactly. That's cool though. What about your trajectory as a musician? Did that start with bass, or?
So for me, that's late in life.
Okay.
I started playing music as a musician in 2010.
Okay.
So
no lessons of any kind for you as a kid?
No, I didn't. The only thing I guess I would count would be when I was a teenager. I was around the age of 18. I started getting interested in bluegrass music.
Okay, cool.
And so I got a banjo.
Nice.
And played it a little bit of self-teaching with a book and things like that. No instructor. And
not making Malcolm Gladwell happy.
Right. Yeah. And so I figured out a little bit there, and that's one of the things how I met Ben, who's our banjo player in our group.
Okay.
And, we both worked at Walmart when we were teenagers. And
Really?
we just started talking, and he
Walmart and Independence?
Yeah.
That's got to be some people watching.
Yeah, the one, and it doesn't even exist anymore. It's before it moved to another.
Okay.
So, yeah, we worked there, and, he mentioned he played banjo. I said, so do I. But I didn't understand how good he was.
Oh.
Like, he's like one of those virtuoso kind of naturals.
Oh,
Even
shit.
back then, this was the late 90s. And,
Okay.
And he came over. Hey, why don't you come over? We can play, And I quickly realized I was a super beginner, and he was, miles ahead of me.
Did I say? I meant I have a banjo.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like I
Did I say
guess
play?
I play it. He still gives me crap about that.
Sure, of course.
But it's pretty funny. But it kind of made me. I don't want to say it discouraged me. It really didn't. But I probably would have had the same trajectory where I just kind of didn't pursue it. But just following him, I started getting excited about his music.
Yeah.
And we get into like the 2000s, and he's wanting to start playing out. He's writing music. He was doing this looping version of his songs. This is like a long time ago with like the rudimentary loopers, not like what they have now.
Yeah, I mean, in a good decade, 7-8 years before we would get Mumford and Sons and sort of this bluegrassy injected pop rock. I don't even know.
Yeah, he always says like, well, I used to be ashamed that I play the banjo. Now it's like it's cool for some people, but I started just kind of helping him with his music career, almost like a manager, I would say, and helping him book gigs and like learn the technical side of all of his setup. And he was doing. The thing is, our music, even though it has a banjo, it's not bluegrass. Even though we do some bluegrass songs, it's just he happens to play a banjo.
Yeah.
But we want to do the music we're going to do. He could play a guitar, it'd be the same thing. If he played, I always say, if he had an accordion, maybe he just really got into accordion.
Sure.
He's going to maybe try putting it through effects pedals, and he's influenced by what he's influenced by. We all are. And I honestly sometimes forget there's a banjo, because what he does with the sound in our band is he's got it through a pedal board with a guitar amp, and so helping him get into the music scene is how I got into it.
Wow.
Basically.
That's cool.
Didn't really pick up the bass until later on, whenever he was having a album release, and we thought it'd be a nice surprise for people if a couple of his friends went up there with him and played some songs.
Funny.
So I learned a few songs on bass. And
you had a bass?
And, well, I borrowed a bass from the guitar player we had that we knew.
Nice.
And we just did that one thing, and another person on the bill that night was looking for members of his band, and Ben and I ended up joining this guy's band.
Oh,
and
wow.
All of a sudden I'm in a band, and it's just trial by fire.
Do you mind if I keep this bass?
Yeah, I borrowed the bass a little longer, ended up buying my own, and that's how I learned how to be in a band.
Wow.
And we did that for about 5 years, and then...
Trial by fire.
Yeah, then we went out on our back. At that point, Ben had his music. I could now play, and we're going to start our own thing, and that's when we started Tracer Heights, basically.
Cool. Very nice.
So and so it's been I've been playing for now, I guess we're coming up on about 14 years.
Okay. I meant to write it down, but I forgot. But there's another. Is it the Accidental something?
So I play, and then there's another group I'm not really fully active with now, just because of time commitments.
Yeah.
But that group I play bass with some other friends of ours, and that's more of an eclectic folk rock kind of more traditional group, but more kind of multi-instrumentalist. There's a woman in that plays a cello and a little bit of trumpet and mandolin and things.
Cool.
But I still do play with them a couple times a year.
Right on. Yeah.
When I'm free, whenever they want to book a full band show.
What's the name? Accidental.
The Accidental Project.
Accidental Project. And
That's right.
Is there a spot folks can keep tabs on that if they want to?
Their main thing would be on Facebook.
Facebook.
Yep, the Accidental Project. Yep.
Cool. Right on. Well, thank you again for being here and sending me your list, which, another one of those things that has been pockets and lanes of stuff, and I sort of hit this little window of late where it's like I'm just tons and tons of firsts on people's lists.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, now? Like, I would expect to be in this spot where it's like, early on, I was like, if one more person puts Yankee Hotel Foxtrot on their list.
That doesn't surprise me. Which it was on, it's probably like on mine and, number 10 or something.
Yeah, right.
Top 10, I'm sure.
So, and just, it's, I don't want to sound cheesy, but it's like inspirational in the sense that like what people are into is some form of infinite. There's always going to be, repeats and stuff that's familiar, but, so anyway, like I look at your list and I'm like, interesting. Like I don't have much of an idea, what it's going to feel like as a whole.
Yeah.
And then that thought was fleeting, right? And then since having gone through your list and listened to those records, I kind of can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because there was, and this is some form of this is probably true for everybody's list, but there was like a cohesion to it that the pen and paper doesn't lend itself to, right?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I like to run through them just chronologically and release date, which puts us in 1966, Beach Boys,
That's right.
Pet Sounds.
Well,
this is 11 of 29 for them, 13 tracks, 36 minutes. Only the second Beach Boys record to make somebody's list.
Okay.
Ironically, the other one, a fellow named Brad Smith from Eggs on Mars.
Okay. I don't know Brad, but
they're a local, soft ambient psychedelic rock. And our conversation was relatively recent. So, I got deep into the 90s before there was a Beach Boys record on anybody's list.
Yeah.
And then the fact that it wasn't Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
I was like, and he was like, man, I felt like, gun to your head, most folks are going to pick that. So I picked Friends.
Yeah.
Which is...
It's adjacent to
Yes,
Pet Sounds.
interesting.
Yeah.
Brad's episode was number 107, but this one... recognized for its ambitious production, sophisticated music, and emotional lyrics, and is now considered to be among the greatest and one of the greatest and most influential albums in music history. And it, like, what a whopper to lead things off.
Right. Yeah.
Tell me about this.
I mean, I feel like it's one of the albums, if they were to send like a Voyager 3 out into space and pick an album to put on it to represent us as a people to alien cultures.
Yeah.
They could pick this one.
Sure.
I mean, I'm fascinated by the production of it.
Me too.
And just Brian Wilson and his approach. And I mean, the title, literally, the way he would, from what I've read about it over the years, he would take kind of these instruments and combine them into this combination of sounds that made a new sound. And these are kind of like his pet sounds. And it'd be like, okay, what happens if this French horn and this electric bass and this wood block?
The horns deep into the record, like totally caught me by surprise.
Yeah. And he would just kind of create these sounds that you don't, you have to really think about what was that instrument, There's a song where he actually has a bicycle bell and horn, and it sounds like the most beautiful thing you've ever heard in the context of that song. Yeah. Well, that's really what it is, though. When
Brad chose Friends, I go to the discography and giggle because some version of the word surf appears in the title of their first 3 records.
Right.
And that's what my stay in classic rock land was far too long. I don't regret it per se. It just is what it is. But before that, it was all oldies all the time in my mom's car or whatever. So like, if you could think of the whole oldies catalog, which includes a lot of Beach Boys cuts,
right?
hardwired in there. It's like sunshine, surf, girls, and California, and it's like this is the same. You guys, Pet Sounds and Friends are the same,
Yeah.
And also listening to this, I'm like that production, and it's cleanly. I'm like, well, everything's been digitally remastered, right? Nothing is as it was in the. But I kept coming. Normally, again, that I would have that thought, it would be fleeting, but I kept coming back to it. Man, this sounds so crisp and clean for 1966. I don't know, as Forrest Gump said, where the sky ends and heaven begins in terms of the production versus everything being new. You know what I mean?
and the copy I have is a CD that has both. It's like the album's on it twice. It's got a mono version and a stereo version.
Oh, wow.
And I'm a very purist type of person, so I don't know if I've ever really listened to the stereo one. I always just kind of, I think the mono one's probably more historically accurate.
Does that mean stuff goes here and stuff goes here?
And it just doesn't have any of the. There's a tendency, some of these people, when stereo became a novel thing, to start experimenting with it, and they wanted to move things around. And to me, that would happen sometimes even after the original release, just as a hip new thing.
Yeah.
And I just shy away from that.
Interesting.
I just want to hear, okay, I'd love to hear what it sounded like the first day it came out, and they dropped the needle. And you're talking about listening to it in the car and things like that growing up. I feel like it just doesn't seem like the average person, when they hear music from this era, listens to it in the way we're talking about it. They're listening to it just as a radio song. They don't understand the sophistication maybe that's under it all because it's a pop song. It's so fascinating to me that there's this time when popular music, and music of this caliber were kind of the same. It's not like that anymore to me. Like,
when was that?
Well, I'm just talking about, like, if you go back to like the 60s and 70s from my point of view.
Yes.
We go back and these are like the best albums of all time, and they were popular.
Well, it was the age of the album.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. And now what you see as popular music is just kind of disposable. It's not overlapping with what I consider to be like good music. But even then, like in the 60s, the musicians they were like classically trained people that were playing. Before that, they probably grew up playing like in orchestras and big band and stuff.
Right.
And now they're doing this pop music thing, and they were getting better at recording it. And you've got Brian Wilson there orchestrating these musicians, and he's trying to tell them what to think about when they play this, and pretend you're pretend you're a kid on a bike. And he had all these kind of keywords he would use and things he'd say to them to inspire them to play a certain way, and just obsess over it and create something like this, And the whole time he's kind of, I don't know, devolving a little bit himself mentally.
Right.
And
well, I know I've talked about it before, but what did he have? Did he wind up with dementia, or he was in bed for?
I think he nowadays might have it, but no, I don't really know what
I've Googled it.
Causes
I didn't keep it.
This, but this psychosis thing is a thread through some of these records for me, and it's like I feel like this thing where these artists will degenerate as they express themselves through music. It's almost like it's just being captured, and these genius musicians with these psychosis problems, we all benefit from it kind of. And I always struggle, like, are they benefiting too for having the outlet to play the music for us?
Probably, but it doesn't look or feel the same would be my guess.
Yeah. And it's just just this concept of like, whenever you're having these mental issues, are you tapping into something beneath the surface of everything else?
Whoa.
And we get to have it on an album, and
yeah.
I feel kind of guilty almost in this weird way sometimes, but I like to think that it helped them to express themselves, to maybe work through it. But the business side is a factor, I think, for them and him. And
well, yeah, I mean, this again, this is a stroke of luck and a decent amount of commitment and talent, and you wind up in front of a person who connects you to a label who will pony up for studio time, and somebody made this crack talking with me, and I it really stood out. You blow 30% of the budget setting up the drums.
Right.
And then, so, okay, here's your time that we spent the money for you guys to have. Are you coming into the studio with the thing already written and it's just a matter of getting it down? Or are you fleshing things out in the process? Is everybody going to get along? Will the band emerge from this still intact and together? And then track listing and runtime and cover art and production and all these things, and then there's a finished product, and now it's just you're just like on your phone, and it's like
it's so different now. Yeah, it just doesn't really get the attention. Seems disposable.
Well, and then on that same side of it, lots of folks can just make a record in their basement.
Right.
You don't need a brick and mortar and all the bells and whistles and so on and so forth. And it's just a wildly different animal. It really is.
Yeah.
From 1966 and the Beach Boys, one of the hardest pivots, if we're in that chronological theme, is to 1992 with 9 Inch Nails' Broken.
Right.
Second of 14 for them, 8 tracks, 31 minutes. Healthy amount of 9 Inch Nails of late. Again, just here, it's
really?
like a little smattering. Nothing for I don't mean for the whole since the inception. Tell me about this pivot. I don't suppose it was necessarily intentional, but it does exist. And by the way, a huge, again, 66 all the way to 92. Lot of soldiers fell, from whatever your list looked like when you first made it. A lot of tough cuts.
Right. Yeah, it was brutal. So this one, and there's other albums on, I would say the same thing about another one, but I don't consider it the best 9 Inch Nails album. I would probably pick a different one. I would probably pick maybe the Downward Spiral.
Okay.
But for me, like the impact on me is really the focus. And it's just this, it kind of takes you back to that angsty teenager era of your life where it just feels good to listen to music like this and maybe blast it and do a little bit of self-therapy, and just it's a very kind of, it's got this anger, it's got this hurt, it's got all this stuff that just as a 16-year-old, that's probably whenever I was listening to it the most. And I remember still having cassettes in my car, listening to a cassette of this. But I had the CD. It was like I would dub them to cassettes to listen to them in the car. And I just remember driving around in the 87 Firebird, 16 years old, just wearing this tape out. And it just...
letting off steam.
Yeah, exactly. That's the way to put it.
That accelerator with a little extra grit.
Yep. And the album is so concise. So it's really an EP.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just so consistent, and it just kind of all killer, no filler,
Yeah.
It just kind of punches you in the mouth. And, like you mentioned, it has 8 tracks, but it really doesn't. It really only has 6 tracks.
Well, there's a couple little 1 minute, like the lead off one, and then there, I'm in hell. What is that?
Help me, I'm in hell.
And those are like
a
minute.
Those are, and those are counted in this 6. So the way this works is this is a thing. It's totally gone now. This doesn't happen in today's music, but this album, when you get it, it's got the track list. It has 6 tracks. You put it in your CD player, and you're like, why does it say it has 99 tracks? And you listen to the album, it gets to track 7, and tracks 7 through 97 are just a split second long.
What?
And it starts skipping and you're like, what is wrong with my equipment? And then the last 2 of those 99 tracks are these bonus tracks that aren't listed on the jacket of the album. And that is just such a sign, a bygone thing. You can't do that on Spotify, you know?
No.
And it's just part of the mythology of it, which is something that I'm always drawn to with music, the mythology behind it. And Nine Inch Nails had that. He had named all his albums Halo 1, Halo 2. They were these halos is what they were called. And you would seek them all out and collect them and put them in order. And it was just this, he would do things like that. He was really trying to push the limits of the whole experience.
Yeah.
And
I forget if it was Downward Spiral or The Fragile.
Mm-hmm.
One of them, and it's, you know, I knew this before it was on somebody's list because it's a relatively famous thing, but he turned it in to the record label, whoever his contact was, and was like, sorry, I had to.
Yeah.
Like, I know this isn't what you're looking for, but this is my record.
Right. Yeah.
So is this your intro to Nine Inch Nails?
No, my intro was the Downward Spiral.
Okay.
And then I kind of worked backwards from there. I never, like, Pretty Hate Machine is one a lot of people like. I never really got as into that one.
Okay.
Just because the production on it has got that dated, it had more of a dated sound to me at the time. You know, it was always Downward Spiral and Broken, but Broken's the one that I always keep coming back to. And
cool.
You know, I listened to these just recently to kind of reacquaint myself, and there's some crazy stereo. Speaking of stereo, this is one where the stereo was something. He has all these stereo effects going back and forth, and I just think Trent Reznor he's more of a producer than anything.
Fascinating.
And the stuff that he produces, which I think that's no accident that now he's doing like film soundtracks. And,
is he?
And things like that. Yeah. But yeah, this album, it's just this perfect combination of like industrial and heavy music. These digital guitar sounds are beautiful sounding to me. And it's great the entire way through, you know?
Who do you recall who turned you on to Nine Inch Nails, or what, where, or when you were?
So in school, so a friend of mine, actually the guy I borrowed the bass from.
Nice.
He got this album. He got not this album, but he got the Downward Spiral for his birthday.
Oh, wow.
We were probably, I guess we'd be about 15, and when I first listened to it, I was like, I don't like this. This is all messed up. I don't understand this. This guy's whining about this and that, and I don't like any of this type of music. I was more closed-minded.
Did he ask for this because he knew what they sounded like?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And you know, it was really, there were three of us that always hung out, and the other two of us were just making fun of him. Why did you want this?
Yeah.
But he was ahead of us, you know.
Yeah.
And so a year or two later, we started listening to it, taking it seriously, and we got really into it, you know.
Yeah.
Just more of that same vibe, that teenage angsty vibe. And
similarly, you know, I don't, you know, a mix of, I don't like this. Mm-hmm. This is all, you're doing it wrong. Mm-hmm. And also, I didn't know you could do that.
Right.
Like, you can that can be what your band feels like and sounds like, and you're making records just like everybody else.
Right.
Whoa. Yeah. Okay. That's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, you know, I honestly never really followed all of the albums. I mean, I would always get them after the Downward Spiral, and I didn't really ever get into the Fragile. Kind of got into them again when they started coming out with like the Year Zero and With Teeth kind of albums. But it's really just the Downward Spiral and Broken specifically that have been the ones that really sunk their teeth into me. You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of that has to do with just, I don't know, I feel like when you're younger, when you're a teenager especially, these albums will have a bigger effect on you. They just sink in deeper into like the sponge of your brain.
Sure.
And it's not the same as you get older for me.
Well, there's all this stuff circulating out there that says, you know, studies show that whatever it is you're listening to at 14 is a common.
Is it?
I've seen people put a small range, or people say 17, whatever it is, but 14 is the one that I feel like I've seen the most, but it's like whatever it is that you're into then really will shape you musically, and will you grow and expand and deviate? Yeah, but that's always going to be your sort of jumping off point, which is fascinating.
And I feel like when we listen to music repeatedly, we're trying to reproduce that first time or when it finally had an impact on you. You're never going to fully reproduce it, but that's why we want to keep listening to it. And when you're younger in that age, it just has a different effect on you than it does now.
Yeah. Starts getting real inception-y.
Yeah.
And I've brought this up a bunch in early episodes, but again, like I read something that every time you recall a memory, that recollection becomes the memory.
Okay.
And the original thing fades, and it was already, before I read that, I already had this like kind of occasional curiosity of what are my actual memories and what got in there from photo albums and stories being told to me, and it's like I don't really know. And then I read that every time you remember something, and I was like, I give up. I don't.
It's just the mental tape hiss.
I'm going to just, try to have a good cup of coffee in the morning and go to bed and make sure my kids, I can't get in there. That's too crazy.
Right. I know. It's just like dubbing the tape over. And
Yeah. So, a short leap, from big leap to a short leap, 1995, Mellon, Collie and the Mellon, Collie, if I could speak, and the Infinite Sadness, Smashing Pumpkins, third of 12, 28 tracks, 121 minutes.
Yeah.
We've gone from Hawthorne, California to Cleveland, Ohio, and to now Chicago, Illinois. I know Gish has come up a time or two. Siamese Dream has been on several lists.
Right.
This is, I think, a first.
Okay.
Massive record with just a ton of music on it.
Yes.
We've talked a couple times, once recently and once before we were rolling, about putting in the hours. Have you listened to this thing start to finish on multiple occasions?
Oh yeah, I mean it was on a loop basically, going back to that same era, driving around. Really, and what's interesting is that I listened to this recently again all the way through.
No kidding.
Just the other day, just to kind of prepare for this. I had the day off, and I really explored all these, and it was such a fun day. I mean, just listening to these all the way through, and looking at them, the packaging, all that. And one of the things that struck me though is the transitions between the songs. When you hear the song end and the next one start, those little moments bring back the most memories for
No
me.
kidding.
Yeah, just like I remembered that, okay, that song ends, this one starts, just like that. Something about that really brought back these really strong memories of being in that car driving around, or what I was doing at the time.
Sure, I could see that.
And it's just from listening to music, an album at a time, instead of a song at a time. And Siamese Dream you mentioned. Again, I don't think this is the best Smashing Pumpkins album. I would call Siamese Dream their best album. But this one means more to me in certain ways that I keep thinking about it. And it's more of like almost like a antidote to the Nine Inch Nails thing. So this reminds me of a really happy...
Trent Reznor has infected me, and now I need what do you call it?
I would call it, I don't know, an antidote or the medicine.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
But I mean, it's sad, Billy Corgan's pretty whiny, I guess you could say, but
if nothing else, nasally.
Yes,
which can make crosshairs with whiny.
Exactly. But I know this is more like a really fun time in my life. What's hilarious to me is I think back, the girlfriend I had at the time looked like Darcy. Ooh, from the Smashing Pumpkins.
I mean, she's cute.
Yeah, she had the long blonde hair and the red lipstick, and dressed a certain way, and she loved Smashing Pumpkins too. And just thinking about this album, I'm kind of a sucker for the concept albums,
Okay.
And it doesn't really fully approach the famous classic concept albums of our time, like The Wall and he called it the wall of Generation X is what I want
Billy
to
himself
make. He
did?
said, I want to make that.
Oh, okay, cool. That's better than
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think he did. I don't think it's that cohesive as much as they want you to think. But, I think there's a little bit of filler on it. Maybe like the last 5 songs are just weird. Some of them.
Yeah.
Like,
I think that I bought this. I'm gone, by the time I'm still in my mom's house when Siamese Dream comes out, but I'm gone now when this comes. But I think, I heard it was out, and I was like, I have to have that. They're relevant and blah blah blah. But I think I don't think I lasted long, and it was like, I'm not feeling it. And then all of a sudden it goes from the real or proverbial desk to gathering dust in a pile somewhere or whatever. But I don't think I ever went back.
Yeah,
because I'm going now. I'm 2 years removed from high school, and I'm going a bunch of different directions musically, and those are just grabbing me with fervor.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is sleepy, really long. What?
Yeah.
And so now, giving it a listen all the way through, I'm like, okay, it's 2 full listens allows you an opinion. A third full listen allows you to share that opinion.
Yeah.
That's kind of, so I'm breaking my own thing here. 1 full listen, and I'm like, is this like an opera or like a big? It's like calling it an album is almost not enough. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what's happening subject wise or thematically, but there's so much in there that it's kind of bonkers.
Right. There's a lot of, like, I would call mythology around it. I like that. I've always liked Billy Corgan's lyrics because they're very abstract.
Yeah.
And I write lyrics kind of like that. I like the puzzle aspect of lyrics. I like that you can write a song that might mean different things to different people. I like sitting there trying to decipher what the person is saying, but not knowing for sure if I'm figuring it out. I like that about his lyrics. His style is just kind of like that. He's rarely doing like telling you a story. It's just, I'm going to say these can invoke this imagery in you with my words. And, they really, nobody knew exactly what was going to come out after Siamese Dream because it was such a big splash. And that album has such specific production with all the layers.
Yeah.
This strips some of that away.
Yeah.
And it reveals other kind of genres that they play. Like now, okay, they're doing metal, like heavy metal sounding.
Right.
This glam thing, or this almost like, they're influenced by like 70s hard rock. And the producer matters so much. The production matters so much. It just has a different feel. And Siamese Dream is a lot more cohesive. But this one, you're bouncing around through these different. And there's one song that just sounds like a straight up like R&B song, and it jumps all over the place. And I kind of think now, like, everybody lumped them in with the grunge thing.
Yep.
But they're a little older, I think, than those grunge.
Well,
people.
Gish Siamese Dream is like 92. 93.
92 or 3, and they were coming out with stuff in the 80s.
Right.
I think their first album they formed in the 80s.
Rhinoceros, was that an?
That's on. Oh yeah, that's this EP that was with Gish or from Gish or something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it's so funny to me that you at that age driving around listening to this, or me in my room with my cassettes, and I always I love a good piece of cover art.
Yeah.
But I definitely want, even if I know by heart, I want the band member names and their instruments. If there's guest appearances, I want those. I don't have to have the lyrics, but it's nice.
Yeah.
If you, and then the year, and then I'd always get to like mixed, produced, engineered, like, and the reaction was always the same. Who is this for? Who gives a shit about where this was recorded? And now
Yeah.
It's almost like I go to that first.
Yeah.
Not
I
all the
love that
time, but
stuff.
yeah, of course. But I for so long was like, why is this here? Like nobody
Uh-huh.
is anyway.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned the lyrics. They're famous, especially on Siamese Dream, for not understanding what is he saying. And I just remember this so clearly in the booklet for Siamese Dream. There's a thing: send for lyrics, send SASE to this. And I
Nice.
did it, and I got it, and it
Cool.
was this artistic fold-out
Ooh.
poster with it all handwritten. And I swear, if there was a period of time among my friends, I was the guy that had the lyrics to that. You know, he actually
You still have it?
and it's inside the CD case.
Oh, nice.
I think I need to check on that.
Right.
But I remember we're all gathering around. What is he saying here? What did he say here? What did he say here? You know, that's crazy. Can't believe he
Don't
said that.
forget to drink your Ovaltine.
Right.
A crummy commercial.
And it's like, okay, so he said it doesn't matter what you believe in. Okay, he said believe. I didn't know that.
Huh.
You know, he just had this pause in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that behind the scenes stuff, I've always loved that.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to know everything about it and the story behind the people, and the lyrics are always good, and yeah.
So it's been said a time or two regarding the Pumpkins on here that they can be a hard band to be a fan of. And I think that there are, if there's any truth to that, I think there might be a number of different levels or reasons why. And one, you know, where it naturally veers is that Billy Corgan is got a reputation or had a reputation for being difficult.
Yeah.
Somebody told me, or I read, you know, they record Siamese Dream and then he went back in and recorded everybody's parts.
I have heard
himself,
that too.
supposedly.
Yep.
I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, it's like, what are you doing? Like,
right.
Anyway,
control freak kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So these are the three things that, as far as the Pumpkins being on this podcast, I felt were kosher to mention. One, hard band to be a fan of, and Billy, and so on and so forth. Two, I've heard it said that there's a lot of filler on this record, and if they would have done some, you know, they could have made a traditional length,
right?
But I was gonna lob that over to just gauge, but you said it yourself before I could even get there.
I had the same thought.
Interesting,
many times.
But you still love it for what it is.
Yes,
the whole package.
Right. I just don't know if you could pare it down to one unless it was like an 82-minute album or something, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing with concept albums. I love the long tracks I love songs that have got movements in them, and these 8 to 12-minute songs.
Yeah.
There's some on here that are just listening to them again the other day. It's just as epic as ever.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's partial to my love of like the jam band thing or the Fish thing, the extended thing. It's just all kind of combines there. But, you know, I don't think you could get it down to one, but there are some songs on there that are very left turns and like, yeah, I don't know. And, you know, after speaking of Billy and like the albums after, it's another one where I didn't really follow him much after probably the Adore album, which was after this.
Okay.
And really
like a year or two.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think so. I think this was probably 95, 96, and it was probably 98 or so.
Okay.
But I was listening to this, and the very last song on this album is called like Good Night, something along those lines. I think maybe Farewell and Good Night. That song is, I was just getting really sad listening to it.
Oh, wow.
Because really it was after that they kind of, you know, they had a bunch of tragedy where they had to kick out the drummer because somebody died on tour from a heroin overdose touring this album.
Really?
Yeah. Jimmy Chamberlain got kicked out of the band for several years because he was on heroin, and somebody like
I feel like I
died.
did see a little Jimmy Chamberlain's return.
Yeah, I mean, he's back now.
Okay.
And has been for a while, but they made Adore without him, and they switched to full-on electronic type drums. The album's really pared down and got these little beats in the background, and it's all ballady, totally different. It was a huge change, and I do like that album.
Okay.
But listening to them on this at the end, they all are kind of splitting up the vocals and each taking a verse, and it just kind of feels like they're saying goodbye. Like the
Whoa.
real Smashing Pumpkins, it's been great. This is the end when you listen back to it, and it's very sad to me to listen to, because this was like the last one I feel was like the real thing.
Wow. I'm really it's fascinating to know that, but I'm glad, because the third thing that comes up for me every time Pumpkins comes up is where does Jimmy Chamberlain rank amongst his 90s counterparts at the kit?
I would say he's way above many of them to me.
Every time
Yeah.
I sit down and mindfully put on the Pumpkins, I'm like, this guy's fucking an animal.
And it's basically a raging river. That's how I describe his drumming.
Oh, I might take that and give you no credit for it.
Yeah, go ahead. And it's just the fills and the flow of it all. And I actually
crisp and punchy and quick and
yeah. We have a song that I've actually told our drummer Joshua, that reminds me a little bit what you're doing there, of this raging river thing that Jimmy Chamberlain did. Sometimes I like that. You should do that more. That's cool. That's what that reminds me of. And
well, it's just so fascinating. I mean, like, not that it was less apparent or that I ignored it when the stuff's coming out, but I mean, sonically, like, if you distilled the Smashing Pumpkins, like, there was nothing. I mean, yeah, call grunge their contemporaries, or maybe they predate them by a little bit, but nobody sounds like that. Nobody has this crisp punch guitar sound. Nobody's definitely vocally sounding like that, and it's kind of a female bassist, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty hip. I can't really hear the bass too terribly much because there's a lot else happening, but it's like, looking back, how did I overlook what Jimmy was doing at the kit? And I think it's because those other pieces to their sound cover it up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And so, the mixing of the time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But geez, man, he's
a beast.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he really is.
So from there, the Soft Bulletin, Flaming Lips.
Yeah.
1999, 9th of 16, 14 tracks, 58 minutes. Maybe the fourth Lips record to make somebody's list.
Yeah.
Always a fascinating undertaking in terms of they've had a thing where it's 4 different CDs and hit play at the same time.
Right, yeah.
Parking lot experiment and car stereo experiment. There was one that was packaged in a way that if you went to buy the CD, it was packaged in just this out of this world idea.
Right.
And they made it happen. You got Homeboy in the Bubble at the shows. Just a lot of ground kind of, stuff nobody's even thought of doing before. And they're just like, it's what we're doing here. It's what we're doing here. Right. What's your introduction story to them, and how did this one earn a spot on your list?
Well, I want to say it's the first Flaming Lips album I really listened to.
Okay.
But, they got that one-hit wonder kind of phase with that She Don't Use Jelly song.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, that was another MTV song, which by the way, I kind of feel like one of the reasons the Pumpkins and the grunge thing are combined is because of MTV. Just the music video scene, putting them all together. And they're part of this too, right? There's a song, and it just has such a 90s sound, this hit song, She Don't Use Jelly. It's another one where I don't feel like everyone always listened to their guitar sound, sort of like when people don't listen to all the sounds in Pet Sounds. This album is a result of their guitar player leaving basically the band, and he was a signature part of their sound. And he was a genius, this guy Ronald Jones, who had this certain effects set up and way of playing that could make these guitar sounds a certain way. And without him, they were kind of just trying to restart.
Huh.
and he left, and it's weird. It's the weirdest story. I don't know if it's another example of a psychosis or not, but I just know that nobody knows where he is now. Nobody knows if he's alive or dead. He's totally anonymous ever since then.
No way.
Yeah, whatever he did, whatever he wanted to do, he achieved it by becoming
and this is
anonymous.
the start of the second half.
And this is a result. Yeah, this is the result of him like leaving basically, and they started doing those experimental things. You mentioned the parking lot, the Zyreka 4-disc thing.
Yeah.
They recorded this at the same time as Zyreka.
Okay.
And they basically had told the record label, we're going to record this really experimental thing, but we're going to use the same time and budget to record a normal album too. So will you help fund this? Yeah. And so they did this, but they were, they wouldn't. I guess what I had heard was that they were actually kind of excited to not have to be just your typical rock band anymore.
Oh, all right.
So they didn't really have much guitar on this. There's songs where you listen to it, you're like, there should be a guitar there, but there's not.
I gotta adjust my mixing.
Right, and instead it's an orchestral sound.
Huh.
And that's the thing about this album. It's like it just has a vision to it. That it's another thing I appreciate when people just have visions.
Yeah.
Like they have their vision of what they want it to be like, and they don't really follow what people are saying they should do and that. And it's just, another member of the band, this guy Steven Drozd, Drozd.
Okay.
He is really the architect of this music. And he was just the drummer before that. These amazing Bonham style drums that he could do, paired with that guitar player Ronald Jones, kind of gave him their sound. But with this, he's like doing all this composing and other music, and it's just he turns out he's got a genius in him, I think. And they just kind of caught everyone off guard with this, I think. And it's just, I don't know, made a bunch of lists, that year. They didn't even think it would probably, but it's fascinating to me. The cover is Neil Cassidy
from On the Road.
Yes.
Nice. Or and the Ken Kesey.
Like the whole Ken Kesey, Grateful Dead. This is from the Acid Tests.
Okay.
It's some photo in Time Life where caption like Neil Cassidy dances with his own shadow.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I didn't actually know this until recently. I was just reading about it, but it's very cinematic, this album. This looks like a poster for a movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything in the liner notes is like that too.
Huh.
And it just feels like the soundtrack to a sci-fi novel. That's the way I would describe this.
Yeah.
The
novel, the movie, the idea, the vision, as I think you said.
Yeah.
And really, Yoshimi and At War with the Mystics.
Right.
To me, those are perhaps the most familiar to the casual or the non-Lips fan. Like those, biggest chance somebody might recognize those titles or maybe a couple of tracks from them. But they're after this.
Yeah, they are the result of this, I would say, maybe like this shift. And then the world is open. It doesn't have to be, we're not in this rock band anymore.
Yeah.
We can do this, we can do anything.
Huh.
And I love those albums too.
Yeah.
And you factor it all into their live show, and like you said, the spectacle of it all. That's another component of these guys.
Yeah.
They just, they're just artists,
For sure.
And this album, there's a spot in this album that I always think of where you actually hear the watch beep, like on the drummer, Steven. It's like, they just left it in there because it sounds so perfect with the music. You hear this like beep, beep, and then the drums kick in, and it's almost like they did it on purpose, but apparently they didn't.
It was an accident.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just still in there. Oh, we forgot to take that out.
Right.
But that actually sounds really cool.
Nice.
It's a...
So do you, did you mention already, do you know everything prior and what's been put out since, or do you just know a few select albums?
So I've It's another one where I followed him for the next 3 or 4 albums, and I'm behind now, basically.
Yeah.
And everything before I'm pretty familiar with,
Okay.
though. That whole era, their
Yeah.
first era,
Yeah.
which didn't even have that guitar player the whole time. He came in like in early '90s until this, and but they all have the same vision. It's just the different format or instrumentation, I guess, and
Wow.
and yeah, they definitely have had a couple of eras.
That's cool.
But
and,
yeah.
and still,
Yeah, and
have survived.
I really need to check out their newest stuff. I know they still come out with some stuff.
Yeah.
Probably pretty recently.
Perpetually behind.
Yeah, basically.
The list is never ending and always getting added to. Oh God. All right. Okay.
Right.
So we get out of the 90s then and landed 2007 Person Pitch, Panda Bear.
Yep.
5th of 9, 7 tracks, 45 minutes. Noah Benjamin Lennox.
Yeah.
Part of Animal Collective, who have 12 albums.
Right.
Never heard of this cat. Tell me about who he is and what your discovery of him looked like.
Well, I discovered him through his band Animal Collective, which, if you want to talk about experimental and vision, they're just way out there. Some of their albums are just, I would say, unlistenable almost, but they just wanted it to be that way. That's their vision. And I guess he's traditionally their drummer, but he's, more of an electronic musician too, and this one has always struck me as, I've always liked it better than their proper band albums, a side project, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know, this album, it just had such an impact on me that I can't even always explain it. But I'll try.
Okay. It's out in 2007 and it lands in your lap in...
pretty much right when it came out.
No kidding.
That was when I was in the big, the Pitchfork reviews, that review site. I was really following that a lot at the time and kind of using it as a guide to check out things. And that's where I think I read a review of this probably. And it's just an album that I enjoy so much that I actually restrict myself from listening to it except every year or two just to save it.
Wow. How many listens leading up to that choice?
Oh man, when I would say I did listen to it on a loop for a while, but I have no idea. I probably haven't listened to it more than 50 times in my life.
Okay.
And I just listened to it again recently to prepare for this after having not listened to it in a couple of years, and it just feels like I need to save it. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. And
you got limited listens.
Yeah.
Like, careful.
Yeah.
You're down to 7. It's like, what if I live for another 50 years?
I know. And it just, I don't know how to, it's like a drug experience to listen to this album for me. It's just, there's so many subtle little things. It's like these layers of samples shifting, and one will just like pop up for a second and then go away. And it's like these little pinpricks into another dimension for me. Or, I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just, I get tense listening to it and sweaty kind of, and it's just this ride that I go on when I listen to this album. And it's just always been that way. And, I'm kind of scared of it, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it.
Wow.
But the vocals, it's so abstract. These little samples coming in and out, these vocals, they're kind of far away, and, all this reverb and, I don't know, it gets all kind of tribal-y at some point, like this alien music to me. And it's just kind of like slipping in and out of consciousness,
Okay.
And it's just, I honestly don't know what other people think of it. I don't know if other people listen to it much or what. I think it's well reviewed. I know that. So I think it's well known, but among some, but
I have to ask, this is, I know choosing 5 is preposterous,
yeah.
but, we have to respect one another's time. And, if it's that compelling, you can come back with a new 5. You know, we can make that happen.
Yeah.
And I've got a little thing in the kitchen with a Post-it on it, and the Post-it was supposed to, because enough people are like, "What about you, man? What about your 5?"
Yeah.
And at one point, you get asked that enough. It's like, I bet I should put pen to paper.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm like, it's gonna have to be 10. And then I was like, gonna have to be 20. Technically, this is like 27. So I haven't even done it, right?
You're right.
But this was 5th of 5 chronologically for you,
Yeah.
and it started with pet sounds.
Right.
I hit play on this and walked to the other side of the room, and immediately it was like, whoops. I clicked the wrong thing because I think I just accidentally put on another Beach Boys record.
Right. Yeah. I know what you're saying.
And so, like, and it didn't dissipate with track 1. It was kind of there with track 2 a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then it was almost as if there was a presence in the room. Mm-hmm. Like, somebody's here, but I wasn't scared. It was either that or, you know, wormhole to a different dimension opened, and I didn't go through it or get sucked through it, but I was just aware of it being right there. And that maybe was a little more troubling than the idea of a person, you know? And so it's kind of like, oh no, it's Beach Boy. And then it just transformed into, and never did I want to be like, that's too much. Mm-hmm. But a couple of the, you know, lengthier, getting down to like 2 minutes left, I'm like, oh, that's enough of that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
But just bizarre, enjoyable, fascinating, an outfit or a record I probably never would have come across had you not included it.
Yeah.
Did you already tell me how? Oh, because you're reading Pitchfork reviews, and that's what put it on your radar, right?
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, I want to say that I first heard the album Feels by Animal Collective, which has got some similar. It's a little more cohesive, of course, but I think then I started branching out from there. And I think he's pretty commonly compared to Brian Wilson in his voice.
Oh, really? Okay.
And his melodies, the melodic vocal thing that he's doing. So it's no coincidence. I don't think you're the first to hear that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons. It is one of the reasons I'm drawn to it, because.
But you didn't intentionally go Beach Boys and on the bookend. Okay.
No, honestly, I would put Beach Boys higher up on my list of ranking, than it is chronologically. But
no, I just meant in terms of the feel, the vibe, the aura are in the 1 and the 5 slots.
Oh, okay.
It's the bread to the sandwich.
No, I guess it's sort of a coincidence. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay.
Yeah.
The other piece that came to mind listening to this, and just a real quick peek at what he and his setup looks like. Mm-hmm. Bo Burnham, you know who this is?
I do know that name, I think, but
stand-up comic who.
Oh yes, okay.
Yeah,
he did the thing. He released the special during the pandemic.
He did, but that was his second.
Okay.
And the first was like, on stage with this gear and like a light show kind of thing, and it's sort of this indescribable mix of humor and psychedelia. And then from the pandemic one, we got out of that came the Ted Bezos. I'm trying to think. It's one of those. It's either Bezos or one of the other, and it's a song that kind of leaked into the zeitgeist and was in TikToks and Instagram Reels and stuff. But how the riff is escaping me, but nevertheless, fascinating stuff.
Yeah, and you're saying it kind of reminds you of that, like his music, because is that what you're saying? Kind of.
Well, it's just like. I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan, and kind of an insatiable hunger for people to put out new hours.
Yeah.
And for it to be YouTube, Netflix on yours, I don't care. Just new, fresh. And so you got to check out Bo Burnham. And I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And I stuck, through, and I was like, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But people are like raving about it. And I'm like, I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
And then he does that second one. And I'm like music, everything can't be for everyone.
Right.
So if a shitload of people love this, don't hate on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got to a spot where I was like, you know what? Good for him. I am impressed that he, sort of like the Lips with that. We're gonna make this. We'll also make a decent record, but will you help us put this thing out?
Yeah.
And so, like, good for him that he did that and that it was successful. He doesn't necessarily, this music doesn't necessarily remind me of him, but just the fact that he does or they do their own thing, and it doesn't necessarily fall within the parameters of what you would normally expect. Just sort of an appreciation.
Vision is the word I use.
There you go. Thank you. Sorry.
I love people with vision.
Yeah. So it was cool, man. I didn't try, but I don't think I was able to put it into words until just now. What was unique about that listen?
That makes total sense to me. I feel exactly what you're saying.
So now I'm out, right? I'm out of the parameters of your list, and I'm like, what is, it's like this itch I can't quite read. Like, what is it? And it was there the whole time. It's the psychedelic as a descriptor for Tracer Heights.
Yeah.
And that is, you guys didn't invent that. Like, it's not everywhere, but it's been in spots, whether an artist chose it for themselves or the music community chose it for them. Yeah. And, Brad Smith with Eggs on Mars, that's part of their fabric as well. And so I'm like, what does psychedelic mean? And so I wrote it down.
Yeah.
And I think this was one of 5 listings.
Right.
Of or noting a mental state characterized by a profound sense of intensified sensory perception, sometimes accompanied by severe perceptual distortion and hallucinations, and by extreme feelings of either euphoria or despair.
Okay.
And I read that a couple times and I wrote it all down, and I was like, I don't know what that means. What does that mean to you? This term, that definition?
I mean, in terms of that definition, I think that makes sense to me as far as the definition of the word as you experience that. It really does. Having never really read that definition, it makes me think of the Person Pitch album in the way I was describing it. But when it comes to music, I was just talking about this the other day with Joshua, our drummer. The term is applied to when someone says psychedelic music, people think different things, like a wide range of things.
Do they?
I think so, because I don't think most people include the improvisational, the Fishes of the world necessarily. I think they go to more of a garage rock 60s thing. Like,
really? Where do you go?
I go more towards the improvisational unexpectedness of things. Like, there's a festival that shows up every year in Casey called Psych Fest.
Okay.
And it's kind of ran and I think driven by maybe the Record Bar people.
Cool.
And when you look at the bands on it, the fans of those music would probably hate the band Fish. You know what I mean? But I kind of consider the band Fish or bands like them to be part of the psychedelic umbrella. And but they like more like the wall of sound, distorted guitar. It doesn't have to be a long meandering song, but the vocals of a wash and reverb and the spaciness of it, but more of a rock thing.
Interesting.
And
so the other 4 definitions, somewhere in the mix of all that, the word drug.
Yeah.
is in there. Not in that one,
Mm-hmm.
but and my curiosity was, is psychedelia or psychedelic, can it exist on its own without drugs? Because in my mind, no. Now, if you want to get into some of the psychosis that we've touched
Right.
on here and there,
Yeah.
yeah, but
I think
how many of those situations didn't at one point involve drugs?
right. And I think I would agree with you. You have to kind of have the drug part of it, I think, in there. They're kind of intertwined. The history of the term probably going back to the 60s, the
And
Cultural
Greek
Revolution.
roots like
Well,
psyche, and then I forget the delias. Like,
yeah, I guess. And I mean, you really should go back way further than the
yeah,
60s, really. You should go back to, salvia in South America or something, or the mushrooms that they say Jesus was probably eating. But
did they say Jesus took mushrooms?
some people say that a lot of the stories are based on people on
No
mushrooms.
kid.
I've heard that,
Wow.
yes.
Okay.
But, the miracles and things, maybe. But yeah, I think drugs have to be a component. And
Which, okay, all right. So, um, different times now than the '90s. There was a huge element of hush, right, when it comes to marijuana, mushrooms, LSD.
mhm.
It's still not. I mean, just last night we rode after dinner. We rode bikes to Baskin Robbins,
Mhm.
and we're coming out with our ice cream, and here comes a DoorDash gal,
Mhm.
and just this impenetrable cloud of marijuana smell, just sort of like pig pen
Uh-huh.
from the penis. There's even if she showered and put on clean clothes, I think it would still be there, and it's like still I haven't adapted yet to be like,
Oh yeah.
that and protect my kid. It's like no, it's people just smoke weed and don't
Right.
have to like hide it anymore.
Right.
That's just the way things are
I
now.
know.
And just so many, oh shit, in my own life and experience, cops, parent, whoever, hiding, trying to be secretive, and so where I'm going with this is uh, negative. There's a negative connotation with
Mhm.
uh, hallucinogenic drugs and psychedelia. So there's a swath of people out there that would say, I don't want my kids to listen to this kind of music, or I don't want to associate with folks that attend this kind of concert cause drugs.
Right.
So it's sort of to me it's a little bit of a vulnerable descriptor to put on
Mhm.
music or an artist,
Yeah.
right? Because some folks I think are going to bristle before you even show them
Yeah.
an album cover or whatever the thing is, right?
Right. Yeah, and the term for us was used, I guess I thought of it as an angle for, we originally just called ourselves psychedelic roots music, which is flows really well. It
Yep,
sounds cool.
I like it.
But then I realized we aren't really very rootsy. We are, our drummer, he's more of a rock drummer at heart, I think. Rock
Okay.
and pop, maybe, and Prince, and, you know, um, stuff like that. And like we have the banjo,
Yeah.
so that's the roots component. But again, he's playing it.
Sometimes you can't even hear it.
You can't tell it's a
Tell it's a
banjo.
banjo,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And, our record even says no guitars were used or harmed in the making of this album. Just because people may not understand that that's not a guitar. Sometimes that distorted electric guitar sounding solo you heard was a banjo. And so we kind of abandoned it just because it felt like we were using it as a way to try to like trick people into tapping into. It's kind of like this improvisational rock scene to me, especially in the Midwest, has been sort of usurped by a bluegrass thing. And you've got these amazing musicians, people like Billy Strings, as an example. It feels like the thing people got out of the improvisational music, they get out of that too, even though they're wildly different things. The bluegrass approach is in itself improvisational. It's really what Jerry Garcia did. He took bluegrass and combined it with a blues band. We're going to do blues music, but we're going to approach it like bluegrass, with everybody taking these long solos and trading, and everybody's equal. But now it just feels like the eclectic rock improvisational band has kind of been replaced by a bluegrass thing.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of our way of saying, like, well, we can do that too. Maybe we can ride a little bit of that coattail, maybe, like as a marketing thing. But now I've tried to start removing that roots term from it, because it's got to be who you are,
Yeah.
Don't try to be something else that might, I don't know. And so it's just, we're pretty much a rock band that branches out into other genres.
Cool. Now, again, in the notion of respecting one another's times, I could talk to you for the next 6 hours about Phish.
Yes, I know.
But I'm not going to do that. I would like for you to give me introduction, and then what your relationship with the band has looked like from then up until now, and if you want to sprinkle in a couple of studio favorites or a couple of shows if you've seen them.
Oh yeah. So I'd heard of them in the Columbia House catalog. Remember that?
No way.
That's when I first started seeing their name. I was like, "What's this Pish?" Pish. I remember those catalogs.
Of course.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, but I was.
So I guess I probably heard of them first in '94, because that was whenever they were doing the big push with Hoist.
Yeah.
So I'd seen them. A friend of mine had an album. Didn't really make an impression on me, but then I saw them on Letterman doing Julius.
Wow.
And they had the horns,
Yeah.
like the band helping, and I thought that was cool.
Giant country horns.
It was either that, it could be, or it could have been the late night band.
Oh,
horns.
well, I think giant country horns are the studio.
Yes, I'm sure they
No,
are.
Tower of Power.
Okay, yeah.
Tower of Power.
And they
the
also
studio.
have Jonathan Frakes on there, who's Riker from, I don't know if you knew that, but
I don't know who that is.
so Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay.
William Riker. He played trombone on that album somewhere. He's credited.
That whole thing?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't know how good he is. Maybe it's just
But
they recorded in L.A.
from that, that tune from that record.
Yeah.
And is how it ends, and there's some crinkling, and then,
it probably
and
is.
then turn it into oh man, I'm drawing another blank.
It could be,
but it's one of those funny little, this is how and then there's some auxiliary noise.
Yeah.
And then it blasts right into the next track on the song.
That might be. I bet you that if I had to guess,
That's Riker's Mailbox, though.
Oh, Riker's Mailbox. That's
Yeah.
why it's called that.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
But Tower Power Horns, William Riker, you said?
The character Jonathan Frakes.
Jonathan Frakes.
That's his
Alison Krauss.
Yeah.
Tower Power Horn. I mean, they pulled no punches.
They tried to make an effort to create a proper studio
Collabs
with like an LA fancy studio, But I'd heard that, and then, but the real way I really got into it was my cousin, who's pretty much my age. He has an older brother who's also my cousin, of course, but he was into him and introducing my cousin to them around this time, and so my cousin just started having these albums, and we'd be listening to them. This was before Billy Breathes came out, so it was the same era. And I bought Picture of Nectar. That was the one that got me into them. And it's that short attention span that I have with music too, where it's like every song's kind of different, and it's just jumping around in genres the whole time. And I
sort of similar, not the same, but sort of similar in that Nine Inch Nails. I didn't know you could do this. Mm-hmm. Junta and Lawn Boy and Rift all have a feel. They're very even the color of the cover art, like matches somehow,
right?
And that's true cover art wise with Picture of Nectar, but the content from opening to finish is they're like covering it all almost, and doing something like, I mean, the studio cut of Tweezer gets like so atonal. You're like, stop, you know?
I know.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, no, yeah, they're trying to capture, I think, their live experience on record, and I really think that that's a futile thing to do if you're Phish, to try to. It wasn't really until the Billy Breathe. You could count Hoist as well, but Billy Breathe to me is the one where they really were like, okay, we're gonna make a studio album that's its own thing, and to me, like Billy Breathe is their best album, in my opinion. And
Steve Lillywhite.
yeah. And then Story of the Ghost is also up there. But it wasn't really until they came out with those that they stopped trying to kind of recapture the magic of the live show on record.
Fair.
And, I saw them first time in 95.
Okay.
Or no, 96.
Okay.
In Kansas City.
Nice.
If I'm remembering right. No, we went up to Omaha the night before.
Okay.
And they came to Kansas City. My cousin had seen them in 95 in Kansas City and in, I think also, Lincoln.
Yeah.
And in the 95 fall tour. This was fall 96. We're all in high school. We went, and I had friends in high school that came that didn't get it. They hated it. Other friends that they did and
hated it.
Yeah.
Like they went to the show?
Yeah.
And hated it?
They just went because all of our friends were going and they didn't like it. And I remember one of them saying he fell asleep.
Oh,
sitting in the stands. But, they're by far my favorite band of all time. I've seen them.
Yet nary a Phish record on your top.
Right. And it's just too on the nose,
I know.
But I think I've seen them somewhere around 85 times.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
I'm at 82.
Yeah. So.
And maybe Mondegreen happens, and if it does for me,
I'll be there. Yeah.
You have tickets?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that I was gonna say I would catch you. I'd hit 85, but you'll just move right into 88.
We've probably been in a lot of the same ones.
Perhaps.
If we've lived around this area.
Perhaps, Red Rocks in 94 was my first.
Okay.
Saw them the following year at Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and then Red Rocks again. Came back for that. I did KC, Lincoln, Cedar Rapids.
In 95.
Yeah. Saw them in Vegas in 96. I mean,
yeah.
I caught a couple. I'm trying to think of far away. I mean, because a lot of KC and Colorado shows. Caught a couple Baker's Dozens. Did a Miami New Year's run. Seen him at Alpine and Deer Creek in California and Arizona. It covers mostly where I've seen them.
I mean, most of mine are on the I-70 corridor and the Alpine. We would just go every summer. They'd always seem to play like KC, St. Louis, Alpine, and Deer Creek, Alpine, and you'd get in 5 to 10 shows. And when I was 1998, I was 18. We went up to basically Kansas City all the way to the Lemon Wheel.
Oh, wow.
So that was the big tour, the big coming of age. You're 18 years old, you're gone for 20 days or whatever. And that was just so many good shows.
Your parents were like, okay.
I just had to call them from the I remember calling from the payphone at every venue.
Nice.
I'd get there, go straight to the payphone. Okay, I made it to the next one.
Yeah.
And, some epic shows, the Virginia Beach 98. I was in the pit.
Oh, boy.
It's a great show, even without them playing Terrapin Station as the Jerry tribute. It was the anniversary of the day he died.
There's still, like, if you
3 year.
look that up on YouTube, it's still just a still shot.
Right. There's no video.
I know.
And I will tell you, they came out wearing all black. They changed their clothes to all black at the encore break.
Including Fishman?
Yes, they all came out. I have to remember that. Maybe not. I don't know.
Interesting.
But yeah, it was interesting. And
then never again.
And yeah.
And Terrapin is just, I mean, I can't say the word without getting goosebumps.
And they just nailed it.
Yeah.
And, it was just such a cool moment. Everybody, I just remember, of course, the inspiration. Everybody's so happy.
Trey comes in so softly with that bididididdy. And it's kind of like, wait, what?
Right.
What was that? Shh, Yeah. And then, oh, man.
That one's definitely up there as far as experiences go. I would say Big Cypress is probably the peak to me. That's like, how could they ever top
New
that?
Year's 99, you attended
Yes,
that.
we went down there to
Did you catch the flatbed set?
So there's a flatbed set at 96, if I remember this right, in Clifford Ball, I think was the flat. I don't think they did an extra set. I
thought Flatbed
overnight.
was Big Cypress.
I think it's Clifford Ball.
Okay.
Pretty sure.
Huh.
In '98, they had the Lemon Wheel, which I was at that one. That was that big '98 tour. They did a surprise set at the end of the show that they just was like an ambient jam where it was just all ambient for an entire set late at night. But Big Cypress with the overnight set, I mean, that was just, they played.
Oh, they played till like sunrise.
Midnight to
yes,
sunrise.
yes. And then when was it? Because they had the tower.
That was in 2000, which I didn't make it to that.
No, I know, but I mean, there is video of that.
Yes, the tower jam.
You can totally step into that dimension.
Yeah.
While that and just like
they've got these acrobats spinning, bouncing off the side of it with lights coming out of the tower.
But I mean, sonically,
yeah,
it's just entrancing.
I know, and so I think the Big Cypress thing is probably sort of the peak of it all for me. I love their shows now. It's just not the same as it was in the '90s. I'm sure maybe you agree, maybe you don't, but I think that the '90s just had a little bit more excitement for it. Now they've just graduated to this, okay, we're just all sharing a brain as musicians. There's no way you can reproduce this without 35 years of playing together. And we're going to just go
41 now.
Yeah, 40.
Yeah.
And the subtle cues they give each other musically that you just can't fake it. It's just, I swear they're just doing like, okay, I'm going to throw in this one note and everyone's going to know we're going to switch to a different mode or something or key or something. And that's how I listen to it now. It's just very heady and they're just pieces. They're not, it's like a classical piece of music when they will jam for a song now. And
so there's like a 23-minute interview with Trey on ABC or CBS. And it was like right before Sphere.
Yeah.
And you really can't give me any content of theirs that I won't just gobble up.
Yeah.
Piss in my ear and I'll tell you it's good.
Exactly.
And it's really, he's like, I think I speak for the whole band when I say the last shows that we just played, meaning Mexico, were our best.
Yeah.
And so the guy's like, are you trying to tell me that 41 years into this, you're just now hitting your stride? He's like, I think we are. And I believe, it's something of circumstance and a number of different things. But I still am a little embarrassed that Round Room and Undermine, like I wasn't even, I don't believe that I was even aware that they came out.
Yeah.
Like, and now it's kind of like, well, Undermine is fine. Round Room to me is bottom of the list.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, when Joy comes out and Sobriety and all these sort of reconnecting and rekindling, I think it was the beginning of hitting a stride that they had never hit before.
Yeah.
And I really feel like what they're doing now is in some ways better than anything they've ever done. Now, I loved the 90s, especially those early there was, you couldn't bottle that. It was just wow and blew my mind. And so, Evolve.
Yeah.
I've probably listened to 50 times.
Yeah.
I've probably, if I've listened to it 50 times, I probably cried at least once in 45 of those listens.
Yeah.
It's perfect to me. And, I also had a similar experience when they put Waiting All Night out.
Yeah. That's a great song.
Was it the single from Fuego? Or
Fuego, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like just beautiful. Now, the album isn't supposed to match the single, right? And necessarily, especially not for them.
Right.
So I don't know what come July 11th or whatever it is when the rest of the record comes out, what to expect. Hardly anybody does, right? But the musicianship
I know.
and the story that the lyrics tell and Evolve, I mean, I will probably go to my grave feeling that Mike Gordon is the most underrated bass player of all time, and what he's doing you know, they're all just killing it. And Fishman's got a couple cool rolls in there, in that a couple drum, kind of down the. So I mean, I'm ecstatic.
Well, and that song, I just love the message of the song. Just if people just understood the scope, it just doesn't. None of this matters.
Yeah.
None of those worries
Yeah.
and problems that you think are so. You just
Yeah.
got to understand that if you just understood the whole scope under the surface of everything and the real.
Then came the people with problems and hope.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I know.
And then they're probably the. No, that's not true. Because when my Zeppelin phase in middle school, and that's when I was first starting to pay attention to engineers and producers a little bit. But the way that they have tackled production and chosen producers and so forth, they've done so many amazing things. Like Billy Breeze has, in the way that those first 4 records had a theme that matched the color of our. Billy Breeze has a feel to it that it's like, oh man, this producer's fingerprint is on the Story of the Ghost is the
that
same
one's
way.
got such a good sound. Story of the Ghost.
The
way it's recorded.
Sicket Disc,
Yes.
of course, is the same. But then Farmhouse also. I don't know.
I think Sigma Oasis that's one where they did a little bit of live in the studio and they captured a little more. Like when you listen to the song Everything's Right, the little jam that they have, and the jamming on it definitely seems in the moment, and they didn't try to engineer too much or overdub or anything. And I really think that one stands out as one of their later era albums that for me stands out more than like the Joy and the Fuego and Big Boat. Those, I like those, but the latest, I think Sigma Oasis is currently their latest studio.
It is
album, and I think
2020, and it was like Evolve.
Yeah,
they just put it out.
Yeah,
and Sigma Oasis. When I what
it was
what it was like right in the middle of shit feeling weird and what is going to happen with the world, and people are scared, and it's like, oh my god. And in addition to doing dinner and a movie and whatever other fun things they were doing, but there's back to that production feel. I mean, the way Evolve ends is just first came the light. And then everything.
It's just over. Yeah.
It's like, oh, you fucking killed it again. It's so great.
I think it'll be a good album. I mean, I'm curious what'll show up on there, because they have songs that have been playing live that'll probably be on it.
Yeah.
And it'll be.
Which was the case. Like I knew I'd seen Everything's Right.
Yeah.
2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I think I actually saw one of the first Sigma Oasises. I did there was like a 9-show fall tour in 2019, and it ended with 3 shows in Charleston.
Yeah.
It just kind of went boop, 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 boop down the East Coast. I caught all 3 of those, and I think set 1 opener, 3rd night maybe had a Sigma Oasis, and I was like, this is cool. And then boom, there it is on the record.
It's got that song Thread. That one stands out to me.
The last one?
It's like a sequel to Steam, basically.
That's like, I'm seldom sticking around for the entirety of that song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's, again, going back to the concept album thing, apparently there's a 3rd song called Epitaph that they've never let anyone hear that's been written.
That is related to Thread and Steam?
Yeah, so it's Steam, Thread, and Epitaph. And I'm always wondering, is that going to come out on the next album they release? Maybe?
When Steam got, I've seen a bunch of Steams. I didn't miss a Dick's show until the 12th year. Mm-hmm. Because the 11th year was actually the 10th because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I caught the 11th, but I got shut out in all the way. So instead we went to Atlantic City and saw him on the beach for 3 nights. That's cool. I was like, this is quite the acceptable substitute.
Yeah, I'm at that point where I want to go see him at the venues I haven't seen them at. I'd love to go to the Gorge.
Sure, I've always wanted to, and now I'm like, it's how easy. How easy can I?
Yeah.
But I also have gotten to a spot where, if I go do Dick's or I go do Charleston or whatever it is, like it's now it's the week. It's the whole week. Mm-hmm. And what am I doing with my downtime, and who am I seeing the shows with, and just the travel. Mm-hmm. It's not just, chasing fill in the blank in a set list or hoping there's a trampoline something. It's just this is what I love to do, and so I'm gonna stick it in the middle and have relaxation.
Yeah,
and maybe I'll go play some golf or go for a hike or visit some friends that have no interest whatsoever in the show, but they live nearby. Mm-hmm.
It's a good reason to travel. Sometimes to me it feels weird traveling without going to shows.
Yeah, for sure.
You're like, yeah, we just came just to come here. Okay, yeah. When's the show?
What are we doing again? Yeah. When are we going home?
Yeah.
So I mean, I know that whatever. So you have your profile pic on Facebook, and then this, whatever that one's called, your
maybe cover photo.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my cover photo, I haven't changed it in forever, is a still of Trey and Mike kicking in the dance they do in Gula Papyrus.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You know how they.
Yeah.
It would be, but so how did you and Joshua connect the dots that I was into Phish just from that picture, or?
He must have been the one to tell me that, but I've seen you mention it. I think I've seen you mention it on the website for this podcast when I was checking out the website.
Oh, really?
Or maybe it was just, no, I was looking at the website just the other day, and you credit the songs that you have on it, like the intro and outro, and you're like, this is, I don't own this. This is a song by the greatest band of all time.
Yeah. Okay. I do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I always am like giggling, thinking 0 people will ever read this. But if I long for somebody to bristle at that and challenge me that Phish isn't, and this is very specific, the greatest band in American rock history.
Yeah.
Challenge me on that, and you will taste defeat swiftly. And no, I'm kidding.
No, I get that, because they've done everything on their own terms.
Yep.
They've achieved the same level of success as anyone can achieve, I think, with music, and they can still. Maybe that same interview you were talking about, he was talking about how I can still be kind of anonymous. They're like people are gonna say, who, when they see Phish as the second band to be at the Sphere.
That. Yeah, for sure.
And he's like, you're exactly right, and I think that's really cool. But they did everything on their own terms, and they just
turned out to be perhaps the greatest blessing.
Yeah, and
ever.
They just, I just think when people don't understand, I'm just like, well, you're missing out. I've kind of lost the energy to try to debate, but it's
gone full swing now, because I say get shut out at Dick's. I mean, bots.
Yeah,
those tickets are gone like that.
Right.
I had the craziest, because I went. You mentioned SASE.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting tickets.
I remember
via the mail,
and it worked so much better.
It did, and then it's like I had this crazy run of lottery success. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, okay, I want to go see 4 nights in Miami, or I want to go to Festival 8 in Indio, and I would just get, and especially Dick's, just every time I'm getting. Mm-hmm. And then, man, it ran out, and I get shut out every time now.
I just expect it.
Yeah. And so, point being, I've gone from my life's mission is to make folks get it, to turn more people, and now it's like, hey man, I got a better chance for the on
Right.
sale if you're not part of the mix.
Yeah, and those mail orders, that was an event for me and my friends, going up to the post office and filling them all out together. And
Well, your
mail.
stamp had to be in the window or the specific date that they said.
Yeah, the
Right?
postmark. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just, it seemed like
Money order that they would just send back to you.
and you'd get the they had, even then, the tickets
Real
stood
tickets,
out
yeah.
as like these cool artistic things with the foil on them and the drawings. They all met a theme. That's a lot like the Flaming Lips and the Nine Inch Nails thing, where they multimedia.
Yep.
They did that too.
I've got all. I mean, I cut them up.
Oh yeah.
But I've got a photo album of almost something from one of almost every Doniak Schweiss.
Yeah,
If
I've
you
got
were-
the Schweiss, whatever
You've
you
kept
want
them
to-
intact?
I've got 'em.
Schweiss? Is that the pronunciation?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's probably however you want.
Yeah.
I've never heard anyone say it.
You've
out
got them
loud.
all and they're intact?
All the ones I have, I still have intact. Yeah. This would
Wow.
be probably 95 on.
Okay. Yeah,
You
same.
know, 96 on.
And
Maybe.
Mike's Corners always just,
Yeah.
what is wrong with this guy? And then did you ever, I think I have a VHS copy of it floating around somewhere, Outside In.
I have not seen the movie, but I love the music from it. One of my favorite songs is on there.
It's so disturbing.
Yeah, I've never
mean,
seen the movie.
Oh, and it's Colonel Bruce is a part of the mix,
Yeah.
and there's a character, I can't remember who it is, but there's a character that's like, every time they cut to them, they're obsessively brushing their teeth and their gums are bleeding, and it's just like,
So it's like a David Lynch, maybe,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
That makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, he's another very artistic guy.
Yeah.
You know.
There were came across two versions of that interview that you just quoted and that I mentioned, and one was, shorter, and then one was 23 full minutes, and there was a point where the interviewer, which they all got to do it, I get it, but they go to 2000 and the end of the era and Trey getting arrested, and he calls it a rough spot or whatever, and
Yeah.
I've read, on some, or at the height of their partying, there could be anywhere from 3,500 to 5,500 people part of the backstage fabric. And now it's just family, right?
Yeah.
But when the interviewer goes there, and somehow this conversation of everything that went into Sphere preparation and preparing for train wrecks and disasters and all this stuff, and this idea of letdown. What if it? And Trey's response is, the only way letdown happens for me is if I let down the three guys I'm on stage with. Everything else is golden and forgiveness and all this stuff. But he says at the peak of that, Page said to him, as all of this partying and stuff became its own animal, I always said to myself, it's okay, because Trey's got this. And he says, I don't feel like he got it.
Yeah.
And I mean, Trey was like, he barely made it through the 30-second response to the question, but I was just like, fuck.
Yeah, like the fearless leader suddenly, is not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also funny, you said for Panda Bear, the limited number of listens, like I've only, it's somewhere in that same, Bittersweet Motel, I gotta watch it at least once a year.
Yeah.
And I never am not like this for, mostly start to finish. In fact, my primary show going buddy who lives in Charleston, who if I'm at Mondegreen, will be with him. If I've seen 82, 41 of them are with him. Dick's got us a long way in that particular regard, but we went to get a slice on the Jersey Shore and walk up to this place, and just caught us off guard that the dude that owns it and that was running it was Indian, like Middle Eastern. Mm-hmm. He takes our order, and I'm slap happy because I'm in the middle of that joyous week, and I'm partying. So I'm probably a little foggy at the time that we're doing this, and who knows? Maybe I've already got some drinks in me for that evening. But he takes our order and steps away, and my buddy goes, "Hello, sir." I almost shit myself, so much so that when I got home, I cut that into like a little 5-second wave. I got it saved on my desktop.
Oh, really?
And every once in a while I'll just text it to him. "Hello, sir." When he's in the store trying to get him to buy the gun and he just wants the whip.
Yeah. I just always go back to Paige's new shirt.
Oh my God, of course. Oh,
that's Trey right there, the real him.
Yeah.
You know? And I've heard that he was doing that when in college, that type of thing still. He's just this guy always had a guitar.
Yeah.
And just making up songs all day, every day about what's going on.
I took my former boss on a cold call to a buddy that is, has his own business, and he's actually done an episode, and when he did his episode, he was like saying how nobody will, like, I was almost searching for all these years for the band that would replace them as my number one. Mm-hmm. And I discovered at some point that that's just never going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think that he has allowed Goose to take that spot for him, which to each his or her own. Mm-hmm. But I was like, "Hey man, can I come by the shop?" And I got my boss working with me and introduce you guys and we'll just chat. He's like, "Yeah, of course, no problem." Well, he comes out the front door to greet us and he's like, "Did you get a new shirt there? It's so nice." And my boss is like, "What is happening right now?" And luckily he was like, "It's an inside joke. Don't worry about it." But
right.
That's a good one. "Hello, sir. Paige's new shirt." I mean, there's so many gems. Mm-hmm. You brought bad reviews?
Well, and
Mike is eating something. "You brought bad reviews?"
I love, actually, speaking of the inside jokes, Ben from the band likes to reenact where they walk in, where the stage manager walks in. I think it's Brad Sands. He's like, "5 minutes.
Kiss my ass, you fucking tool."
He like throws something at him. Ben does that to me all the time still. It's just like, all right, I'm going to go tell him we have to be on soon. He's going to say that thing, I bet. And he does every time.
It's so great. Well, this is fun. I could just go on for hours talking about those guys. And, I've also, I was never I remember vividly being night 2 of, I think it was 2012, because it was one of the rare summers that they come here. But got Deer Creek tickets, and night 1 we're on the lawn, and night 2 we're under the overhang, the pavilion, whatever. And second or third song and first set, you kind of hear that mound is what it's going to be. This kid behind me, he just lost his fucking mind. He's like, 150 shows is my first mound. I was like, who gives a shit? Like, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But, I've never really chased songs like that. For a while, I was, am I going to make it to 50 shows? Because who knows how long this thing lasts.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And then I got to, I was like, that was cool. I'm glad I made it to 50. And then it's like, all of a sudden I'm like at 75. It's like, am I going to make it to 100?
Yeah.
And it's also like, who gives a shit? If it ends today and it's 82, I love that. But it's for so many years. It's like, you don't know how long this is going to, so just, if you can go and enjoy it, and all the rest of it doesn't matter at all.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to wonder how long it can last.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say one thing, forever. Do you get on Phishhead at all?
Not lately, but
Do you log your shows?
I do have them on there. That's why, but I'm not sure exactly how many because I'll tend to like have to catch it up. Like I'll go in there and then oh yeah, here's the ones I've went to, and I'll catch it up. So I don't know. It's somewhere in the 80s, but yeah, I do have them saved.
Well, forever, You Enjoy Myself was my number one scene.
Yeah, right.
And Colorado, it was like Colorado is where I'm seeing most of them, and then eventually Missouri and Kansas make a little bit of a sprinkle. But over the course of I don't even know how many years, Chalk Dust started, and eventually it overtook You Enjoy Myself and just left. I don't want to say it in the dust, but if you a quick glance, how long is this going to last? If any of these other songs are going to catch it, it doesn't look promising.
Yeah.
And so I've had a pocket where I'm like, I hear that, and I'm like, God, fucking, I can't get away. Yeah. I can't get away from Chalk Dust wherever I go. And most of the time, it's not very fulfilling.
Right.
Every once in a while, they'll take it in a direction where I'm like,
yeah,
that was great. That was really great. Anyway, good stuff. I've got a few goofy questions to hit you with, and then we'll get you out of here. Lunch with anyone you're choosing, dead or alive, who and why?
I would like to probably meet with somebody some mega star musician, like maybe like a Bowie, like a David Bowie, and just talk about like the music. Get advice, I guess. Somebody like David Bowie, maybe somebody like Prince, someone like that. I think
those are great freaking choices.
I would probably go with Bowie.
Okay,
I think he'd be a good guy to just sit and talk to.
For sure. True or false? It is okay, acceptable, and encouraged to like your own social media posts.
I would say that's. So you're saying is that okay?
Uh-huh.
I would say it's okay just because because it's all just a gamed algorithm kind of thing, and anything that gets it to be shown to more people, maybe that would contribute to that, because nowadays it's no longer just everything's chronological. You just get to see it in order. They want to try to be all fancy with everything and also shake you down for buying ads for your posts, and just anything that keeps it going and gets it out there more, I would say justifies it.
I like it. You're given the ability to visit your past self at any age. Also, you're choosing. What age are you choosing, and what are you saying?
I would probably go back to the first age I think of as 10, but I think that's a little too early. So like 13. And I would just say you should start playing an instrument now.
This guy Malcolm keeps calling, man.
Yeah, same concept. It's just like, because I think back, it's like, okay, there could be another 20 years of experience that I could have had, at this age.
Go back to the annual hourly calculus. Isn't that what you said you're obsessed with? How many hours?
Yeah, how many hours per year? Yeah. And just, it's kind of a weird thing because you learn music and you always have the period when you're first learning and you have these plateaus, and then you go level up and you plateau and level up. And I feel like a lot of people now, my peers probably are just on a plateau. They don't put as much time in because they're doing what they want to do with it. So even if you have all those years, maybe you don't use them to the fullest, but just having that, if I could tell myself back then, you will be playing music on stages and, in a band, and even sometimes traveling a little bit in the region and going to play shows out of town, and trust me, do this, do it, start now, because it'll help you later, because just starting later in life is just kind of feel like I missed out. I'd like to tell myself to start sooner.
But it's all good, right? You wouldn't be who you are if it didn't go the way it went.
Yeah, and there's a gestation period of taking in all these albums and influences.
Yeah.
And maybe that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I was just sharing this with a gal that was on a few episodes ago. And she is, willfully moving herself in that path of becoming a writer. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was in grad school, and fiction is kind of my thing, and it's like, what a harsh realization it was to, let's say it takes you 18 months to write a novel or write a book or whatever it is. There's probably another 2+ years editing it and getting it, because the first time is not, you may be like, sell it. It's number one best. No, it's not. It's not even close. In fact, by the time you get to the end of it, like, things might have changed so drastically you wouldn't even recognize elements from the first draft. So it's like, damn, okay, so, well, that's the chunk of time. At least now I know it. And then you learn, most successful writers research. Even for fiction is not an exception. Mm-hmm. If your character is going to be a master steel worker or whatever, like, you got to know
what the steel worker might be reading it.
What the hell you're talking about. So all the gestation period of taking in the music,
right?
You can't just, those hours, they don't just appear out of thin air.
Right. Yeah.
Another true or false. It is okay and acceptable to wear the t-shirt of the band whose show you're going to.
I would say, yeah, it's okay if you try to wear the ones from, like, the years past, right? Like, don't be wearing the one you bought there, but if you're wearing one from years past, that's cool. You walk around, you feel cool. Look, I'm ahead of you guys, I'm the elder statesman of this band, and I've been here. Yeah, exactly. And
so Phish is coming to town. Are you getting your Phish t-shirt out and putting it on?
I will say I have not worn a Phish shirt to a Phish show in a while, though. I will say that. So I probably wouldn't, except for maybe, some unique lot shirt or something.
Okay, fair. Yeah.
Just to show, to tell
God,
the story.
That was so bouncing, like those are like in the fabric softener, or
I had the Glide one, which I can't find anymore.
And of course John Deere and Antelope, and then Bathtub Gin in the was it Bombay or Beefeater? It's one of the gin brands.
Right.
Look like they're the bottles label. Those were like renegade merch days.
The Glide one, was like the one that I always stuck out to me, like, in hearing about that, reading about it or whatever. And, oh yeah, Glide tie, that's hilarious, because they couldn't make official merch. They just referenced it. It's the people who know.
Yeah.
And that's always been cool, I thought. So one of my favorite shirts is the one that's got the Pac-Man on the back with the ghost on the front, with the Fishman coloring.
Yeah.
And it's got the tour dates on the back. And it's been redone over every tour.
Sure.
But
yeah,
I like to wear that shirt quite a bit.
Nice. That's good stuff.
People usually, hey, I like that.
Complete this for me, please. The world would immediately become a better place in which to live if only.
I guess the general answer would be if everybody who could vote would vote. That's what I think. Like, I think people don't vote. I think it's just pitiful, the percentage turnout and voting. Just, Congress is us. If you complain about Congress, you're kind of to blame. You need to go vote them out if you don't like them.
Right.
They have term limits if they have terms, to me. Like, people always want term limits, but they have term limits because they have terms. You can go vote them out. And, like, the term limits almost let people off the hook if they were to do that. Well, I don't want to have to go vote out people. I just want them to go away on their own and just go vote them out.
Where else do we wish for that to be the case, though?
Like, yeah, I know. The term limits.
Celebrities and athletes and movies, like, who doesn't want Tom Hanks to keep making movies?
Right. And it's just
go away after 2 years or whatever.
It's just people in Congress, the approval ratings of Congress are way down. Well, you're just disapproving of the people who let them stay there.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think everyone just needs to vote more.
Yeah.
There's all these consensuses on issues that never get solved because everyone's not voting. But 90% of people agree with this or that. But well, then why is it the other way. You know, well, because it's divided up and not voting. And,
Yeah.
you know, the recent Royals thing, there was a movement to block that or whatever. And they put a lot of money into that. And the vote is what trumped it all, though, right?
If landslide.
People, yeah. I mean, the people didn't have those millions, but they made their voice heard. So
yeah.
I think everybody just needs to vote. It's sad that 26% of the voters can elect a president, you know, because half the people don't vote. And
yeah.
You got to get the half of the half that's left. And I mean, damn. So that's what I would say. Well, the simple answer.
Great answers. Thank
Specific,
you.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention this. I didn't mean to. Maybe I did. Jeremy Clark. Clark. TracerHeights.com.
Right.
In addition to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Bandcamp, or where you stream. Your stuff is on streaming.
We are on the streaming. Yep.
Okay.
Like Spotify. You know, we've got a site that distributed it to all of them. I think. So
first site, and then the self-titled Tracer Heights EP. Is there anything you had hoped that we would cover that we didn't?
No, I don't think so. I think this was great.
Cool.
I love this conversation.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
It's just, it's a fun time.
That makes it's a tough, nobody else really but me can understand that is what makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
I tell that to people and they're like, what? I'm like, well, never mind.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for a healthy chunk now of your Tuesday evening, and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks.